Hello, Revere, and welcome to our Revere Veterans and Community Show. Today I have a special guest. He is Representative Jay Livingstone. Welcome to the show.
Thanks,
and first of all, I want to say congratulations. I understand you had a new baby boy just about 13 days ago. His name is Henry. Expand on that for us.
Yeah, Henry was born 2 Sundays ago, and he's doing great. He was 7 pounds, 9 ounces in the hospital. My wife was released from the hospital 2 Tuesdays ago, and it's incredible having a baby at home. My wife and family have been incredibly supportive. I actually just before coming here got to see him, my wife, and my parents came over to help.
Right. By the way, are your parents originally born in the United States or from some other country?
My parents were born in the United States.
Your grandparents too?
No, on my mom's side, my grandparents were born in Ireland and were Irish immigrants.
So, hey, by the way, that's good because you got St. Patrick's Day in a few more days coming up in there. So, Ergo Brow.
Thank you, thank you. You know, when I was a kid, I think I got more presents on St. Patrick's Day than I did on my birthday or for Christmas.
Did you really?
It was always a big holiday in our family, yeah.
I love St. Patrick's Day. I like the Irish music. You know, before we get into this program here, we have a couple of lovely ladies at the Senior Center. I like to mention their name. One is Mary, and she loves a couple of Irish songs, The Wild Colonial Boy.
Okay.
And everybody, I don't know why, likes Danny Boy, but they don't realize that the melody was written by an Englishman for Danny Boy.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd get that in there. Jay, you are now running for the Senate. And you're going to be representing correctly on this here, the city, parts of Cambridge, Boston, the city of Revere, and the town of Winthrop. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I hope to represent. That's a Senate district.
Tell us what made you decide to run for the Senate, because you're now the representative, too.
Yeah, I currently represent part of Boston, part of Cambridge, and have been in the House of Representatives for the last 3 years. It's been a great experience, and I thought I could do more. Representing the Senate district is a much larger district. I got into politics because I like helping people. I like solving problems. I was a lawyer before.
That's right, you were assistant DA.
Yeah, and I loved being a public servant where you're representing the community and you're trying to solve problems for the community. And I've been able to do that as a state senator, and I think I'd be able to do more for a much larger community as the state. Sorry, I've been able to do it as a state representative, and I'd be able to do more as a state senator.
Right. Excuse me, what does the DA, assistant DA exactly function? I know that what the DA does, that he can say whether it goes to trial or not. You have the same authority as an assistant DA?
So when I was an assistant DA, yeah, I was a prosecutor representing the Commonwealth.
Oh, I see, okay.
And for Middlesex County, and I'd appear in court every single day on behalf of the Commonwealth, representing the victims of crime.
Oh, so you're like their lawyer, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I wanted to get across. But let me go back to you. We have a bunch of questions here. Some of them are right here on the, well, I'll look at the computer.
Okay.
First of all, tell us a little about your education.
All right, so I grew up in North Attleboro. I went to North Attleboro Public Schools. I went to University of Connecticut afterwards, then went to George Washington Law School. I always worked growing up and worked all the way from through high school and college, and put myself through law school, mostly with loans.
Where did you go to law school?
I went to George Washington Law School.
Oh, that's very good that's an excellent school.
Oh, thank you.
It is. I mean, it's got a very good reputation.
It's always treated me well.
That's good. That's good. Now I'd like to ask you, before we get into other things here, with all the, you know, when I look at the computer, there's so many bills that you were involved in there. I mean, I couldn't go through it in a half an hour, but I'll say, tell us about your family. I mean, your wife,
Yeah, so
the kid again.
Yeah, I met my wife several years ago. Actually, when I was campaigning, she was working for a different campaign, and I was endorsed by a union in Boston, and where my headquarters were. The candidate she was working for was also endorsed by the same union, and they assigned her to the same location. And after the election was over, we had dinner and and it's worked out really well
I
since.
could see that.
Yeah.
And you got a little envy there.
Yeah. So we got married in May of last year, and then just had Henry, the newest addition to the family.
All right.
It's going
Here's
great.
a good question for you, Sen- I
Okay.
mean, Rep. I'm looking at the computer here, and the MBTA just increased the fares on the MBTA. Now, a lot of the seniors, like myself and others around the Commonwealth who are on a fixed income, I know 5% for seniors is not going to hurt much, but it does take a little out of their pocket. Is that etched in gold, or can that be rescinded by the state legislature or the governor now? Can he rescind it?
Yeah, it's very disappointing. The control board, which is was appointed by Governor Baker, made the decision to increase fares, and on average, the increase is over 9%.
So the governor himself suggested that they increase the fare?
The people appointed by the governor
Oh, I see.
that are the control board, which is currently overseeing the T.
Oh, I see.
They made the suggestion and adopted the fare increase, and so they could reverse the decision before it's formally implemented.
Are there going to be a lot of hearings held so people can speak up, and
They
or
had
it's all over now for the hearings?
Yeah, they had hearings.
Oh,
The
they
last
did?
one was on Thursday,
Yep.
where they made this decision. Prior to the hearings, and actually throughout my career as a legislator, I've fought fare increases, particularly for seniors. When I was first running for office in 2013, the MBTA did a large fare increase specifically on the ride,
Right.
which so many seniors on fixed income
It
rely
went
so
from,
heavily.
I think it went from 2 to 4.
Yeah, it was about a 70%
Seven-
increase.
yeah.
And one of the first letters that I wrote as a representative was to ask the T to reverse that decision. There was a great groundswell of support, and unfortunately, the MBTA reversed the decision and brought the price back down, and that to me is so crucial because so many seniors can't leave their house without that transportation option. Prior, when the control board announced the decision that it was making or suggesting for fare increases, I joined with the Boston delegation, and we all wrote a letter opposing the fare increase. It's disappointing that it happened. I think that the MBTA, in particular, public transit, is a public resource,
Right.
and we shouldn't be hurting those
Well,
who
they
most
say-
rely on the system, who
Right.
can't afford another option.
I heard like that we're going to get an additional $45 million, which is a lot of money. I know that the MBTA needs to improve because of weather conditions, railway conditions. But I don't know, isn't that like the money that comes in through the fare? That is never sufficient enough. It means every time there's 3 years an increase, 3 years an increase. I mean, why? Doesn't the state help them out in any way whatsoever?
The state does. As part of the state budget every year, there's money that funds the MBTA.
But it's never enough, though.
yeah, well,
don't
it's
get me
always a
wrong.
balance. It's always a balancing. You know, the state funds local roads.
Right.
The state
The
funds highway.
Right.
And similar to that, the state, I think, should provide some funding for
So let me
for
get
public
this
transit.
straight then. In other words, the state funds, let's say, X number of dollars to the MBTA, but if the MBTA needs more than what the state funded, that's when they raise their fare?
Yeah, well, part of it is to cover their own operational budgets.
Okay.
Part of it is the Baker administration doesn't want to rely on money from the legislature.
Oh, I see.
And then, but the larger issue for the MBTA is the state of good repair. There's billions of dollars in repair that need to be done, and this latest fare increase won't address those at all. And that's really the important discussion.
Because over here, I mean, I'm not going to go into this whole thing. People were always complaining, like on some places the trains were late.
Yep.
There was a couple not too long ago where the trains didn't run at all for 2-3 days.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my first votes in the legislature was to dedicate more money to the transportation fund in 2013. And as a result of that, in 2014, the governor was able to sign contracts to buy new Red Line trains, Green Line trains, and Orange Line trains, which were some of the first trains purchased in 40 years. The new buses were also purchased at that time, and some of the commuter rails were able to be are going to be upgraded as well. But unfortunately, for more than a decade, there were no new investments in some of this key infrastructure, and it's tough to make up for that all at once.
I
But
would like to ask you this question, if I may, Rep.
sure,
Can I call you Rep?
sure, you can call me Jay.
Jay, thank you. Jay, the blue line where I live in Revere
Yeah.
goes from Wonderland to Bowdoin,
Yep.
but they want to expand it into Lynn and further beyond south, north. Are they going to be doing that, or that's not in the budget anymore?
So the city of Lynn in particular has been, and the representatives of Lynn have been advocating for that expansion for a long time.
Right.
To connect Lynn to downtown Boston,
Boston.
and improve transportation in this part of the state. And I think those type of expansions are key to allow so many people who are at home can't connect to
Right.
good jobs because of they don't have the public transit options. Unfortunately, right now, because of the situation last winter, the current administration is just looking at maintaining the assets we have as opposed to doing major expansions.
Right. The reason I mentioned that, I don't know if it makes sense. The more people you put on the MBTA, the less people you have driving. The less people you have driving, the less pollution you have in the air, because everybody's talking about pollution, the environmental. So the better the transportation is for the people, the better it is for everybody concerned.
I agree, and I've, throughout my legislative career, I've advocated for more expansion of public transit at lower costs. And
I would do the same if I was in your place.
yeah,
Right?
especially in the densest parts of the state, like Revere to Lynn, like Somerville, where the Green Line extension is another place, where there's a lot of people that would use the transportation service, where we can get the most bang for our buck. And in those type of investments spur economic growth as well. In Somerville in particular, along the Green Line, there's been significant economic development for the last 5 to 10 years in anticipation of the Green Line. And as soon as it gets put in, you're going to see the same. I used to live in Washington, D.C., and I remember there was a station just north of where I lived that was proposed for the first 5 years I lived there. And when they finally opened the doors, property values around the station doubled.
Right.
Now, when I go to D.C., that area of D.C. is one of the most affluent areas of D.C., whereas it was one of those places that people weren't comfortable going at night, 10, 15 years ago. Public transit makes such a key difference.
I would like to mention something. We didn't discuss this, but this is a question that came up here. Suffolk Downs.
Yeah.
City of Revere, great organization. Chip Tuttle, one of the great managers of Suffolk Downs. You couldn't find a better man. The horse racing, 800 people lost their jobs. Is the legislature, anyway, can they do something to bring the racing back into Revere? So it would be not just 3 days or 3 meets, but continuous for a season? Is that on the calendar there somewhere?
So there was special legislation passed at the end of last session to allow Suffolk Downs to apply for horse racing because they had put in for the application to have a casino and didn't anticipate doing horse racing going forward. And so that's what's allowed the horse racing to continue. I think it's really Suffolk Downs has to decide what they want to do and whether or not they want to be.
Or is it going to be decisions going to be up to them if they want to have racing all season long or just a few meets?
Yeah, or if they want to do other economic development on those parcels.
Right. I was very disappointed in the Gaming Commission, the way they voted on there, because they were always talking, when I used to go to the meetings, jobs, jobs, jobs. And when they voted for the casino to go to to Everett, 800 people and their families got worked out of the jobs in there, so it didn't work out too good. And our mayor, if I may say so, did work really hard to try to get the casino in here. So I want to say.
Yeah, I think we can do better with economic development. The Suffolk Downs is a great location. It
is fantastic.
It's one of the areas that's is the largest contiguous parcel in Boston, in the metro area that could be used for development. and it's exciting for possibilities. I mean, it's one of the things that I think about when I run here. I currently represent Kendall Square, and in Kendall Square, often businesses start in Kendall Square. Actually, my state rep district, which is part of Cambridge, part of Boston, has the most manufacturing registered companies of any state rep district, and in large part because of Kendall Square.
I used to work on Kendall Square,
Yeah.
right at the number 1 Kendall Square, that building there. Then the next stop, if I remember, on the MBTA was Central Square.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and in Kendall Square businesses, often they start off with an MIT professor who has an idea. They grow a little. They continue to have the people that are creating the products in Kendall Square, but they sometimes do manufacturing, and often that manufacturing will go to Marlborough or to the Western part. And I'm not sure why it can't come to Revere. And it's exciting to be able to think about those connections with my current state rep district in this Senate district.
You know, is MIT in your district?
It's in both my state representative district and the Senate district.
I'd like to put 2 cents in on that. You know,
Okay.
MIT is one of the best universities in the world when it comes to engineering and technology. But they have a lot of students that come in from overseas. They get a good education here, and then they leave. Wouldn't it be nice if we took students that are mostly American students that are citizens that live in this country? They get their education, but they stay here to help us. There's nothing wrong with others coming in here, but most of them that do come in here leave, and that leaves out most of our students. I don't know if I made myself clear on that.
Yeah. I mean, my wife, who grew up in Massachusetts, is an MIT grad, and she's remained in Massachusetts, and many of her friends are as well.
Not remain in Massachusetts. They can remain in the United States
Yeah.
because, you know, they study engineering, and we need the brains here. We do. I
Right.
mean, we are one of the greatest industrial countries in the world, and we should keep the brains that we get here. We got Harvard here. We got MIT here. We got Stanford out on the West Coast.
Yeah.
The California Institute of Technology, which is just about as good, not quite as good, but almost as good as MIT. Good engineering school, East, West, and we would like to keep the students here.
Well, so many foreign students that I talk to in Kendall Square, they want to remain in the United States, but because of visa issues or some other immigration issue, they have to go back to their home country. And we lose a lot of talent
No,
in that
that's
way.
good. That's good. I mean, if those home countries that we bring them in from,
Yeah.
our friends, and remain
Yeah.
our friends, I'd love to have them come here.
Right.
Oh, no ifs, ands, or
Right.
buts.
Right.
But I don't want to see students come in here to MIT, Harvard, Yale, and then go back to countries that are strictly against us.
Oh, right.
That's what I was trying to put.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. Yeah, and I think if the federal government takes up immigration reform, I think a lot more of those people will remain in the United States and will reap the benefits of it. So many companies have been started in the United States by people who came to MIT and then decided to stay.
No, that's good, because I'll tell you, like the third world countries,
Yep.
send their kids here, the brightest of what they have there, get a good education, go back and rebuild their country. But those countries are our friends, not our adversaries. That's what I meant when I said.
Yeah, and sometimes trade relations develop.
right.
For example, Israel has a lot of companies that start in Massachusetts and or have trade relations with Israel, and there's a common economic development between the two, and the United States benefits greatly from that, including Massachusetts.
We got about 8.5 minutes left, and I got I got to get 2 questions into you.
Okay.
Listening to the politicians talking, because this is a political year,
Yeah.
they're all talking about drugs. New Hampshire has a big drug problem. I don't know if they do or not. See, I was never on drugs because I couldn't afford it. That's why. Okay. No, folks, I'm only joking. On there. Now, they passed a bill in Massachusetts to have marijuana, legislate marijuana legally so people can open up stores and distribute the marijuana. I'm not too crazy about that. But how do you feel, or how does the legislature really feel about the marijuana coming in here?
Well, there was a ballot initiative passed several years ago.
The people voted for it?
The people voted for it,
Okay.
and that's what set up the rules. And it's it's like any other drug distributed through a pharmacy. And I think the goal of the legislation, which was passed by the voters, was that, and I think the state has tried to implement it in that way, to have it be as secure as possible.
Well,
but-
what's to keep me? Let's say I go in and buy the marijuana, and legal.
Mm-hmm.
I buy the marijuana, and once I leave that store, by the way, you want to buy some? I could sell you some. What's to keep me from doing that?
Well, it's still illegal to sell marijuana in Massachusetts outside of
I know, but
of
the
license.
temptation is now greater than it was before. Before you couldn't buy it. Now I can buy it and sell it.
Yeah, actually, yesterday in the House of Representatives, we passed legislation to address that exact problem with respect to opiates, because what often happens with opiates is people get a prescription, and then legally, and then sell some of it,
Right.
and causing problems. And so and also if they have too great a supply, that can also often lead to addiction issues. And so what we've done is, what the House passed yesterday was a limitation on how much supply a doctor could prescribe to a first-time
That's good.
patient. And I think the same type of limitations.
It's on the marijuana too?
Yeah, but the real limitation is it's illegal to sell drugs without a license. And so if you're not a marijuana dispensary and you're selling
And then
marijuana,
you're a drug distributor.
yeah,
Okay,
right.
that's it.
And
Okay.
whether it's marijuana or Percocet.
But you're going to have more of that because you'll have more access to the drugs. So you might have more of a problem with that in the future.
I think if you asked any police officer, they'd rather have people using marijuana than almost any other drug. And as a prosecutor, that was definitely my experience.
Okay. Over here, you've got quite a membership there, Representative Livingstone. You're on the Joint Committee on Environmental,
Correct.
Joint Committee on Community Development,
Yep.
Joint Committee on Housing,
Yep.
and Joint Committee on State Administration. I like to talk about housing because, you know, a lot of people that are homeless, how does that housing bill help them get in? I mean, nobody should be living on the street in New England in this kind of weather. I don't care who it is. And tell us about that then.
Yeah, too many people in Massachusetts are homeless or aren't able to afford quality housing.
What about Section 8? Don't they help them out?
It is, but as rents increase, it becomes harder and harder to find a landlord that will take a Section 8 voucher.
Oh, I see.
And some of the property that has been affordable is expiring, and so that's removing affordable property. You know, developers are told if they keep affordable property affordable for 40 years, they can get certain tax breaks, and at the end of 40 years, which we're seeing across the state. So as a part of the Housing Committee, we're pushing several bills to first encourage people with those expiring properties to keep them affordable, and by offering them new incentives to fix up properties prior to the expiring date. Also, there's another bill that I think is a great bill that allows municipalities that have condemned properties, so properties that aren't being used by anyone, to tap into apprentice programs for trade unions, and where the trade unions will fix them up, and then the municipalities will turn them into affordable housing. And those type of creative options, I think, will increase the housing stock. One of the things that's happening in Massachusetts is we're putting a lot of people in hotels, and this is a problem.
Which is very expensive.
Incredibly expensive. But we need to build more housing stock. One of the things that I was proud to deal with in my first term was the legislature, we passed a bond bill of $1.4 billion, which is the largest affordable bond bill in the history of Massachusetts.
That's good.
Yeah, to help repair and build new affordable housing. And the Deval Patrick administration and the Baker administration have been using those funds to keep our affordable housing in place.
We got about 3 minutes left. I'm going to give you 2 minutes, but I told you can talk on anything you want, but I'm going to change that. What is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts doing for homeless veterans? In any way that the state can help the homeless veterans? I mean, the locals are doing good. What is the Commonwealth doing for the veterans?
Oh, veterans issues are one of the top priorities.
You've got
in
one of the
legis-
best administrators there, Francisco Urena.
He really is. He is great.
He's the best.
Yeah.
I've met him up here. Happy birthday, Francisco. But I mean, what is the Commonwealth really doing to help the veterans?
Well, we've empowered local,
Homeless veterans is.
veteran boards. So Arena, who is the
He's had it.
statewide
Yep.
administrator, many cities have them now because of legislation we've passed. We've offered, there's programs they can take advantage of specifically for homeless veteran housing. There are preferences that veterans have with respect to public housing.
And who did they contact? They were on the left, Francisco or someone else?
Yeah, Francisco, his office is fantastic in the Baker administration, and but most cities and towns also have a local veterans
Right,
agency.
we have an excellent one here, Nick Boer, who's our director. I call him the director of Veteran Services.
Yeah, and that was created by state law, and those type of agencies are incredibly useful for veterans to tap into not only housing services but any service.
Fantastic. So any veteran that's homeless out there, do not remain homeless. Contact your local veteran service and they'll make sure they will help you.
Yes.
Okay, now you can take a minute. I'll leave you 30 seconds to wrap it up.
So I really appreciate you taking the time to put me on. I'm running in the special election April 12th, and I would appreciate your votes. I've worked hard in the legislature. I've secured millions for early education funding. Worked on criminal justice reform where we've gotten great results to give more people treatment options and equal pay for women. The lead sponsor on a bill that we're hoping to get through this session that's already passed the Senate unanimously.
That's fantastic. So,
Thank
Jay, I want to thank you for coming on the Revere Veterans and Community Show. I want to thank
Thanks.
you for that. I want to say thank you for your son.
Okay.
Congratulations again, and your missus. Thank you.
Thank you.
So God bless you and your family and take care of you. God bless our great troops that are out there protecting our country, the people of Revere, but most of all, God bless our great country, the United States of America, and thank you all for listening. And I hope we see you again next time with another great show, just like we had this one. Thank you.